Hello, everybody. Welcome, Crypto Street Podcast. This is Dale coming to you from no other place than I'm actually in Flocko's basement, his mother's basement tonight. So, thanks for tuning in, Crypto Street Podcast. Like I said, we are two-man in it tonight. But Prince is off doing hockey things as he always is. So it's just me and Killer flying solo, which I know these episodes are usually the biggest hit. Sorry, Prince, but it's just
Dale, your internet is like real choppy. I don't know if everybody else can hear you, but
fuck.
not on my end.
Mine are killers. I was saying, 'cause I'm not even on the internet.
Oh,
Are you
Flocko?
So, yeah, anyway, market-wise, we're doing a little bit better here. Tiny
I think
bit.
so too.
Maybe
Nice
we're grasping
little,
at straws, but
Yeah, and I saw someone tweeted. I think it was actually Javier, the crypto coin con dude, Killer. The bull season started last year on November 12th, is what he said. So, hopefully approaching that date, maybe a little pump won't be
I
bad,
feel like
right?
yeah, I feel like November, like early November of last year was just like the beginning of the final like gasp of air of the bull market. I feel like the vast majority of it occurred in the months prior to that, like spring of 17, early spring of 17. I think that's like where I remember the most significant gains coming. So, yeah, I mean, that's cool that it's like the last mini pump started then, but I don't know if that really translates into what's going to happen with us.
Right. Plus, I mean, I said it a couple episodes ago, I just feel that, I don't know what word is the best word, but I just feel it somewhere in my bones that I think we're going to maybe take off a little bit, but too long didn't read is let's roll. But tonight's guest, one of my favorite quote unquote personalities, I guess you could say, on Twitter, Lord Flocko. What's going on, my man?
Thank you, my man. Nice to be on.
Young buck. So we're just gonna kind of dive right in, Flocko. How did you get into crypto? What was it that brought you? A little back to it.
I mean, it's actually funny you guys were just talking about July 2017 because I wasn't around for that at all. My first impression into crypto was probably like November 2018. So, or November 2017. So I was like just getting in there as it pretty much flew. I think the first time I actually bought Bitcoin or anything related to Bitcoin, the price was like 2,500, something around there. And then within a couple weeks, it was up to like $10,000. And then by like, what was it, early December, we were already into the 15, 20,000s. That was where I got hooked right there. And my first investment into crypto was altcoins, non-Bitcoin related. It was Sky.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the project. I was talking to Shower actually about it today, that the fundamentals of the project and just like the use case, like before I had even known how to look at a chart, what the chart was, that was one of the first things that hooked me. And that was the first thing I purchased, and I got it sub like $10, and it took off for me. And that was where I was like, oh, I'm a genius. Like, this is a great, easy pickings. I was like, this is going to be next, I'm going to be rich in like a year. Literally thought that was going through my mind after that. So it went from there, and I had a couple of good flips. And by like pretty much the whole month of December, I was like telling everyone, I was like, yo, you got to buy crypto. I was the guy that like everyone was dumping on. I was telling more people like, yo, let's get in, let's buy more. So I was originally that. And that's pretty much where I got my start with it. But I had known about Bitcoin sub like $5-10 back in the Silk Road days. So that was probably my first experience with Bitcoin, was way back in, I would say, 2014. It was the first time I like considered buying it or had known about it. And I was really kicking myself like when I checked it and it was in the 4 digits. And I was just thinking to myself, I could have bought 10 of these things sub $10 and like I'd just be living right now. But I don't really look at it that way anymore. I mean, the amount of people that lost all their Bitcoin from that time period and things like that, like knowing me, like it would have been a surefire bet that I wouldn't have them anymore. So I think I'm actually more happy I didn't lose them after owning them than just not purchasing them at all at this point. So that's pretty much where I got my start and like the first view I had of it, I guess. It sucked me in pretty quick though. And then from there, I really had to step up and learn how to trade and things like that once the bear market kicked in.
Were you doing anything
So
prior to it, like anything like adjacent to crypto, like finance or trading stocks or anything like that that sort of led you, I guess, to this crazy world?
I was a finance major, so I was obviously studying finance, but there was nothing about cryptos in there. I mean, honestly, for the most part, my finance education didn't even cover stocks or things like that. It was basic derivatives, models, statistics, stuff like that. So I wasn't even really like, I couldn't read a chart for the life of me. I had no technical analysis skills when I came to it. And I didn't even believe the first like 2 months I was laughing at people that were charting things. I was just like, yeah, right. Like all you need to know is that it's going to go up. Like I didn't even believe in it. So my first like 2 months were probably as like anti like traditional finance or traditional like market knowledge. I was pretty much the anti like of everything. Like I pretty much went against all the rules I have in myself today. So if you want to say like I came with any experience or any background, my answer would probably be not only no, but I did everything completely wrong that you could.
like a one, are you going to get a sky coin tattoo on the lower back, since that was your first thing? And two, following your Twitter feed and knowing conversations that we have on a daily basis, what have you done to maybe bring yourself up to speed and to the level of education and charting that you have now? What have you done to better yourself? And if someone new came up to you and asked what would I need to do to get to your level, where would you steer them?
That's a great question. Well, for the first one, I'm not too sure about the tattoo. My mom would be pretty pissed if I got a tattoo, especially with shitcoin. So I'm not too sure that one would go over too hot with her. But as far as the next question, it's really a tough. It's not tough, but like at the same time, I hate to give experience or like knowledge like that out because I don't find myself to be particularly well-rounded or knowledgeable to the sense of a lot of the people that are on crypto Twitter and that trade markets, especially Forex and things like that. Because I mean, you got people like Trader Main and even Cash and them who trade Big Beta. All of them trade options. They trade all kinds of shit across the board, and it's like they just have such a different market knowledge of how things work than me. So when it comes to it, like I try to keep people to the most basic things. Like I don't try to extend my knowledge beyond what it is, and my knowledge goes as basic as it is. So I believe now at this point that reading a chart is the most important thing in any type of market, whether it be a tensor chart, a price action chart, however you want your candles. If you don't look at a chart, I just can't see you realistically being a solid like investor or trader. I guess would be the way I'd describe it. Like that would be the first requirement of what I would tell anyone who's getting into it is learn how to read a chart, because that usually tells like the big picture and everything you're looking at. But beyond that, I think it really comes down to who you are as a person. I mean, it's like gambling. There's 90 to 95% of the people that do it are going to lose, whether you have the right picks, whether you have it. And it comes down to like emotion. It comes down to like, is this a logical setup? Is this a setup I feel comfortable with? Is this a setup that if the price moves against me, this percentage, how am I going to feel? Am I prepared? Like when I go into a position, a lot of it comes down to not only the actual trade, but mentally, am I going to be okay with this? Is it too risky? Is it too much? And like they say, sometimes the best trades are the ones you go all in on. And like those are the ones that you sleep at night with one eye open. You're checking your laptop. And I mean, I spent all summer living like that, where I slept for like hour-long periods, and the only thing I was doing was watching charts, and I completely ruined my health doing that. So like the first thing I'd recommend to people is not to do that and to get away from like living your life, living and breathing charts. I think there's a good balance of spending time in front of a computer and progressing yourself and watching the markets or doing your thing. And there's another between like an obsession of sitting there and watching every price movement, every tick move. When you have people like that, like those people, I try to steer clear of it because I don't want them to lose money. I've had friends that try to get into it, and there's very few that I ever am like, okay, like you're cut out for this. Most of the time, I'll send them reading material, and depending on how fast they get back to me or the questions they ask me based on the material, I'll come back to them right away and I'll be like, you can't do this. Like, you're just not. Like, people have gamblers' mentalities, things like that. I'll right off the bat, I'll tell them straight up, I'm like, you're going to lose money. I was like, if you're all right with losing probably everything you put in for the next year or two, then I'll help you. But for the most part, I try to steer clear of helping people, giving actual financial advice. Especially, I mean, in real life, a lot of people know what I do, trend-wise and things like that. So I get a lot of questions about it. I actually don't have too many people, though, that call it a scam. So I don't know if I would call that a win or a loss yet, but I haven't really gotten too many Ponzi comments related to
I guess
trading
that
crypto.
depends on what the price does from here, too.
Yeah.
I was going to say. I didn't get any friends in above 10K, so I haven't gotten too many scam Ponzi's. Your friends on Facebook.
I think you're probably pretty okay if all of your friends were under 10K. I mean, they're going to be a little bit bored with it for a bit, I think, but they're going to be okay long term for sure.
I think the thing is, too, is a lot of the people that have gotten into it, I haven't gotten too many people into it. It's probably about 3 or 4. Almost all of them haven't seen an alt season of any type of nature, not even like the one we had in April where the shorts got squeezed. And they haven't seen even like basic volatility. Like, a lot of them I got in that more so towards like the August, September stretch. And a lot of them just haven't. I mean, they've seen, since that point, they've seen the price move about $1,000 in 3 months. So, like, for them, not only have they never seen the fund degenerate trading on leverage or any of that stuff, type of margin, that kind of thing, they've never even really seen altcoins move outside a couple weeks of me telling them, here, buy this coin, buy that coin, and then them monitoring it. And that's kind of how I try to get people in, is I'm like, look at these charts, look for these kind of things. So, like, look at how there's no movement on the bottom. It's just literally a flat line at the bottom. And, like, sometimes they'll send me, like, a BitConnect chart. And I'm like, yeah, you can't buy this. I was like, this is not what you're looking for. But, like, outside of that, like, I had one of my boys sent me a Tether chart. He's like, yo, dude, why is the price in just a straight line? And the funny thing was, like, 2 days later was the day that it got arbed real hard and it went down, like, 85 cents. He texted me and he was like, yo, is this supposed to be happening? I was like, no, not really. I was like, this is like a once in a kind of a like rare blue moon type thing. He was like, damn. He's like, a couple days ago I was telling you, like, this doesn't move. I was like, yeah, I guess you got it. But that kind of stuff is like, I just find it funny. That doesn't really bother me or anything. But I know a lot of my friends wouldn't have the patience to go through losing spells and drawdowns and things like that. So I try to keep them as basic and like unattached, while also, that's probably what I would say, is being unattached to your positions, being unattached to your coins and things like that. That's definitely the biggest key, is that, like, one, of course, don't invest more than you're willing to lose in any given moment. And two, if you do lose what you have, like, you're not going to do anything drastic or make a dumb decision. That's the type of people off the bat. If you can't qualify for that, I don't believe you should be trading any market, to be honest. Right there.
You know, yeah, one of the hardest things I think for me and even new people that I talk with is that emotional piece. You know, it's hard not to, especially when you're early on and you are really focused on you know, getting that big green dildo candle and stuff. But, you know, not only that, you've put time and energy into researching a coin, and then you finally find what you think the right position to enter, and then it, you know, just you get in and then it tanks, and you like the fundamentals, you like everything about it. You know, it's really hard. It was for me, at least. It's really hard to put your emotions aside. And I think almost everybody needs maybe to have that one big loss, or not big loss, or just one loss period, to really know what it's like to not be emotionally attached. I think, at least. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right. And I think it's kind of like the fighter's mentality of, like, you know what a guy has until he gets punched in the face. And then when you start bleeding, when that first shot to the nose comes, that's when you really see what someone's made of.
Right.
Like, it's kind of like that. I feel like in trading, that it was like, oh, word. Like, the start for me couldn't have been literally any better. I mean, 2-3 times. I was in XLM and it went from like 15 cents to like 90 overnight. I was just thinking to myself, I was like, it can't be this easy. And like, I was smart enough that I was taking profits, and like that was the only thing I probably had risk management wise going for me at the time that was any bit like okay. I was like, word, this isn't natural. Let me take profit. And I was like, this is crazy. So like I had that going for me, but outside that, once I started actually seeing like the 15 to 20% daily drawdowns, I was like, oh shit, like I'm in some trouble here. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's where your position of like, all right, do I sell here? Do I wait? And you lose
Right.
another 10%. And you're like, all right, now I'm 30% in the hole. I might as well just wait. Now I'm 45%. And then you're like, oh shit, like there we go, we're down 80%.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was probably the first moment where I was like, all right, maybe this isn't like all fun. And I mean, I got really lucky. I took a pretty hard drawdown from the January peak throughout the couple of months that went through, and I actually held everything. I didn't really sell too much. I almost entirely ate like a 50-60% drawdown. And then when we had that April squeeze and all the alts kind of moved for a pretty good amount of time there, I got out of everything near the top and I just sold off. And honestly, until about a couple of weeks ago, I hadn't touched alts since then. I was so scarred. And I was like, I'm never touching these things again. Like, this is not worth it. I knew it would be a moment in time where I was like, all right, this is going to be a thing again. But after seeing how, I don't want to say dangerous because like that's like a silly word to use for it, but seeing how risky and illiquid things were, and I mean, I love a nice shit coin, like something under a couple cents, like it's screaming my name, like that just calls my name right there. But seeing that like also is like the scariest thing to invest in and going to sleep with, especially if you have large amounts of money in it. Thankfully, I never did invest more than I could lose, but I know if I was sleeping in there with 6-7 figures, I'd be a little bit nervous knowing that to get out of my position, I'd be pretty screwed on a hard drop. That's the
Yeah.
thing that concerns me about BTC at these levels right now. Is that like as much as I would love to go balls deep and just everything, like it's just so scary knowing that one dump could really ruin the entire market and just take it all down with it. So that's like another piece of it is that I guess where fear is at its greatest is really the best points of financial opportunity. But I like to think that I base most of it off logic and reason, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be fearful, but at the same time, like I wouldn't just go like a full bull here and just pray that volume comes in or just breaks out. I also worry about in this situation that if BTC were to take off and go full bullish, like what would actually happen to alts if they would
Right.
not take a
Yeah.
hit,
And
but you wonder how much money would flow out of them back into actually into
right.
Bitcoin
Yeah.
and things like
Exactly.
that. So there's like all kinds of risks with, and that's one of the things too that getting people into crypto, it's not like you're trading against the dollar, and that's I think one of the biggest mistakes is that I took me a long time to realize is that you're trading against Sats and Bitcoin. So like not only
Mm-hmm.
are you trading alts as an alt, you're trading them against another currency that's volatile at most times. And when you're
Right.
doing that, like for my friends, they're like, "Oh, I'm up in dollars, or I'm down in dollars," but they
Right.
could really be looking at the wrong thing in terms of how their alt's performing. So getting people up to speed on that kind of stuff is hard because everyone looks at it and they're like, "Oh, I want my coin to go from 50 cents to $3." But like
Right.
realistically, that could happen without the coin going up if
Yeah.
BTC were to just take off. So like
Yeah.
that's something that's hard for people to understand is that like they didn't necessarily make money, even if they did. Like it
Mm-hmm.
didn't mean it was a good trade. So stuff like that,
Yeah.
like it's getting people new guys. It's a little hard to explain that to them.
Yeah. That is definitely very challenging, looking going from the BTC to USD measure in your portfolio. So, Flocko, let's talk a little bit about the other day. I don't know. I think you tweeted it, and we were talking about it too. And Telegram, you traded the was it the pound, right? The Great Britain pound
Against the dollar, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe explain how to the listeners how you found that, what it was you were looking for. Then maybe elaborate a little more on when you're searching for a new alt to buy or something. What are some things that you look at and decide how you're going to get in or when you're going to, not necessarily when, but why you're getting in or stuff like that.
All right. I mean, I'm gonna get crucified for this comment, but I mean, the most of what I look for across the board if I'm trading anything is again the chart. So I mean, I find crypto pretty comparable to forex,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the thing. And Mr. TA was actually one of the best that I had in terms of teaching me and giving me like guidelines and a basic philosophy of what to look for. He always taught based off of supply and demand zones, but he also taught to look for certain types of candles and bodies and confluences and stuff like that. And he had mini guides with just examples of how impulse moves work and things like that. And for the most part, that was like one of the um, most like I don't know how to describe it, not inspiring or most informative guides I took. So when I look for things, is if I'm going to look for a short position, I'm looking at high time frame areas where price dumped. So if you're talking about the price topped at like 6,000, but it actually dumped out of its zone at like 5,800, I'm going to look to short in that general 58 to 6K area and look for that to be where there's other supply orders that haven't gotten hit. So usually in those areas, you're looking for asks that got missed or didn't get touched. So when you're looking for stop runs and things like that, you're looking for those stop orders to get, or those short orders to get filled, and all the other positions that were already in that spot to get stopped out. So especially when it comes to trading Bitcoin on leverage, that's one of the biggest things. I mean, I see it a lot now is people are saying where you would put your stop loss, have that be your entries, and that's really not a bad thing, because usually where your natural point of your pain threshold would be is where most people are going to be looking for the maximum opportunity to buy. So like when I'm looking for a main level, if it's the main level 6,000, I'm usually placing my orders at that level and up, because at that point I'm hoping most people start covering the positions in the opposite direction, and that's going to lead into mine. But I always worry because I keep my stops very, very tight. I don't like to hold anything for a long time. My biggest philosophy is cut the losers fast. I don't care if my strike rate falls into the 15-20%. My theory of it, I'll take a 0.5 to 1% loss on a position rather and take an L than let it run out 5-10% and then really be like, damn, like, because that's the biggest mistake I used to make is
me
watching
too.
positions go into it. And like, it's one thing if you like want to be a knife catcher or you want to degen, like that's fine, you can be that guy. But if I take a position that turns against me very quickly, then it becomes emotional to me, and it's like, all right, like my emotions telling me like hold on to it, like this, I think this is gonna happen, and then like it becomes an absolute snowball. It becomes a snowball of into an avalanche when it happens like that. So I think probably the biggest thing I learned to do was just cut my losses. You just gotta shake them off. You don't think about them. You dead them. And
it's funny too that you say that, because everybody on Twitter, crypto Twitter at least, is, I shouldn't say everybody, but it was so common during the bull run when things started to dip down, that everyone was saying just hold, hold, and now look what, if people were holding, look where they'd be. So I think that's a really crucial point, and I agree with you. My trading philosophy at first was to hold, and now it's cut losers fast. And if Prince was here, he would really be chiming in on this, because he's been a big proponent of that for a long time.
I think that's the smartest move, because I'm in the same boat as you. Is my philosophy coming in with hold, and I think that's like why. And you see it like now with a lot of it. I mean, most of the people that were in crypto at this point, I feel like have capitulated or they're done. So you don't see it as much at this point. But for a while there, especially into the summer, like I think a lot of the anger towards like bigger accounts or towards the OGs, as they like to call them, like a lot of that came from, I think, the hold philosophy. And I don't think like OGs have bad intentions or were willfully giving bad advice. I think a lot of people had very popular accounts, like you said, you were gaining thousands of followers a day without needing to do anything, just because of the bull run. So I think like a lot of people got put into a position of power or influence, and they didn't know what to do with it, or they hadn't really traded, and they hadn't experienced any type of true bear market or any type of true setbacks. Because I mean, what was it, for about 18 months? It was pretty much in an uptrend overall, even if it wasn't like going crazy. So I mean, you had a lot of people who got literally famous off of it, and then when it really came time to shine and it punched back, everyone just kind of dropped down. And I think a lot of my resentment was that I listened to these people. I mean, at the end of the day, it is your own fault. If you take someone's advice off Twitter, let alone an anonymous person who's a cartoon Navi or a rapper or whatever the fuck it is, like when you have that, like if you're gonna take advice from someone, it's on you. Like that's probably the one thing I learned, is that like strangers on the internet are great, but they can also be your worst nightmare.
Yeah,
and
totally.
That's what it came down to. Is I think I had a lot of resentment against people who told me to hold, and I'm like, yeah, I was holding the resentment because I was pissed that I took shitty advice.
Yep.
But I think the only problem I have now is that you have people who are really, really bad from pretty much January on who were trying to like make their comeback or trying to pretend they weren't like that. And that's where like I had the biggest issues of people. Like I feel like those they're not scammers, but I feel like you have like problems with people who do that kind of stuff. The transparency is the biggest thing for me. If I lose, I lose. Like I enjoy it. I mean, there's people who love to. I'm sure there's people who got me on notifications just to watch my plays miss and shit like that. So like, if that kind of fuels me though. Like I'm not just gonna sit here. I'm not gonna cry. Like I was wrong. Like right now on Ethereum, I was wrong. I mean, I'm not gonna give it up until we go up a little higher. But that's an L for me. But I'm not gonna sit here and pout. I didn't.
Wait, so you think Ethereum goes down further?
I thought Ethereum was going to go down further. I still do, to be honest.
He had it
I'm still
going
in the boat, but at 205, I pretty much had it going down, and it has gone up now to about 215, 220. It was dumping right before I got on this call, so I don't know.
Was part of that like because a lot of people got really bullish on Ethereum very quickly there around like 200. Was that kind of like a counter to that broad logic that we were seeing on Twitter?
I don't like to counter. I think that's the dumbest thing. I think counter trading or not counter trading Twitter is how you go broke real fast. I think there's definitely moments where you should look around and see, okay, they're extremely euphoric or they're really in the dumps.
Right.
Like Moon Overlord is one of the best at pulling just pictures up, screenshots of literally people just capitulating right at the bottom of these prices on all kinds of things, whether it be alts, Bitcoin, Ethereum. He's great at just pulling them up and it's like bottom. So when it comes down to that, you look at like that kind of thing. But I think the whole notion of like counter trading and that kind of stuff on Twitter, I think it's just kind of ridiculous. If you can't think it's kind of a sheep mentality. If you can't think for yourself and you're not going into positions because you genuinely think this is going to happen, or your odds are telling you this, or you predict this, you're going into it solely for the fact that someone else is telling you to or not telling you to. I think it's just a dumb move. I don't believe in that at all, and I think there's fun in it, like telling people that you counter traded them or thanks for the donation. That kind of shit's fun. Mm-hmm. But it's what comes with posting your charts on Twitter. I mean, I wrote an article back in the summer about most of my struggles when I started trading and how I would change myself at that moment. And I think a lot of the things I did from there were great because I kind of grew a lot faster than I thought I would. And Cash really helped me with that because I wanted to quit. There were multiple times where I was ready to quit, and I messaged him, and I was like, yo, I'm done with this shit. Like, this is it. And he was like, nah, you're not. Like, just fucking nut up. He's like, get back to it. Like, sometimes you just, like, take a break, get yourself out of it mentally. And, like, things like that was really some of the biggest motivators for me because at the end of the day, like, I realized it's not all about getting rich quick. I think that was one of my biggest mentalities coming in that I changed. And, like, a lot of people just on Twitter, they just kept would say like, hold this, hold that. You're getting price predictions that were like literally 80 times for like high caps and stuff like that. So like when you see those kind of things, that's where you see the emotion. You're like, all right, I gotta like get myself out of this mentality. I gotta stop following these kind of people. I mean, Korean Jew damn near had me selling my house for quack at one point. I'm thinking to myself now, like that thing's down like 99%. Like I'd be broke as shit. Like I'd be on the streets looking for a house. Like looking for donations, like to the out the ass. So I mean, I look at stuff like that, and like I don't hold resentment about those kind of people, but I wonder if like they could do it over again, or the next time it happens, who will actually like learn from that mistake? Because I think the thing is, even if we go into another 18, as much as like this bearish trend sucks, if we go back into a bullish trend for 2-3 years, it's going to be the best thing that's happened to a lot of these people, especially the people that are just getting in now. Even if you have to wait it out a couple more months. And that's what I tell at this point, people I'm getting into it, I tell them the same thing. It's like, you know, like most of them want to see the overnight green dildos you're talking about. I'm like, yo, you just got to relax. Like, you don't want that. Like, at some point, like, you just got to tell them, like, yo, that's not what you're looking for. Like, you're looking for more of, like, there's more pride for me in this point in taking a good setup and making a good trade versus just taking a trade and making profit on it. Like you can enter at the middle of a range on anything and be in the right. Like there's a coin toss. There's that 50-50 if you can literally be right or wrong off a 50-50 guess with no knowledge coming in, no info coming in. So like it's teaching my boys and shit stuff like that. And it's like, yo, like just because you won money or just because you made money, that didn't make your trade a good position or make the trade itself a good trade. So like that's probably where I just focus. Like even when I make a good trade, I'm always thinking to myself, like where could I have gone better? What could I have done more? And even some of my best trades, I mean, I've had some amazing trades and I've either wiped them out because I just never took profit, didn't hedge them right. There's so many mistakes that you make along the way that I think a lot of people don't even understand until you actually make them. And then you're sitting there just like looking at the computer screen. You're like, what the fuck did I just do? Like when that stuff happens to you, that's the moments where you just kind of like, you got that feeling in your stomach where you're like, all right, like now what do I do? Like when your entire Mex account gets liquidated, what do? You're just sitting there and you're like, what the hell? Like that kind of stuff. That's where like you really find out what people are made of. So I mean, for me, I burned 3 Mex accounts before I figured out what I was doing. So every time I did it, I would just turn the Mex account off for like 5 days. And I'd be like, all right, I'm back. So every time that happened, I finally in April I learned to start using stops. So I haven't gotten liquidated since then. But that's kind of the general like where I went wrong and like why I think Twitter is like it's an issue in the sense of you got people like Cred and Dog and them those like who have been around, they're vets of the game and they just do everything they can to kind of inform people without literally spoon feeding them every single piece of knowledge to the trades. And then you have people who just post their charts or a position and it does well. And a lot of people love to see the people who just are posting their positions with the 1,000% ROIs or the people who are doing 10 times. But at the end of the day, like the majority of the best traders who have been here for a long time, they're compounding gains and they're making solid trades, solid setups. They're waiting. And Trader Dante, I mean, he posted a thread on this the other day that the worst thing as a trader for the best traders are you make a bad trade or you have a bad setup, you lose, and then you got to sit there for 5-6 days and all you're doing is waiting. And that's like I think the toughest part for me is not being in a position. I love being actively gambling essentially on it. So when I'm not in a position, like I have that itch or that feel like, oh, I have to be doing this or I have to do that, where I should just sometimes be like, nah, like just sit it out. And I learned that a little bit in September and October when it wasn't really moving, where I was just like, all right, like I got to not over trade or do anything stupid here. Just sit it out and wait. So things like that are like my best pieces of advice for people is that you don't always have to be trading. You don't always have to be in a position or you don't like always have to be, you don't have to feel like you have to have a skin in the game. And I mean, if you're going to talk shit, my biggest piece is you should have skin. You have to have skin in the game. If you're going to talk tough to someone or you're going to instigate or you're going to be giving advice, you damn well better have skin in the game because if you don't, then I find you're misleading. So, I mean, with that being said, if you are following those kind of things, my issues with you would be extremely limited. I mean, I lose plenty. I've lost plenty. I mean, probably since everyone's known me back in July, June, I've taken plenty of losses, and people love hating on Bears. So I mean, like that kind of shit. That's just me. I mean, I've shorted Bitcoin pretty much every month since, well, I don't know, March.
Yeah.
Pretty much played almost exclusively shorts, and everyone hates me for it. So that was how I really got people to hate my guts, and after that, we just went from there. I just kicked it up a notch.
Going back to the whole like trading versus holding thing, it's a complicated issue because clearly it's like at the end of a 10-month bear market, you'd be better off actively trading, getting out, picking your spots, all that. But on the flip side, when the market does go up for 2 years straight, then odds are if you're trading a shitload, you're probably going to make less than if you had just held it from that point. And so it's sort of like a matter of what point at the market we're in, And I think selective leverage is important during bull markets. I do think that, a lot of people shouldn't take leverage ever. But I mean, I can say personally that all of my biggest trades have been when I was levered to the, to the absolute gills, just like super uncomfortable, sitting there watching it like a crackhead and watching it go up. And that was all my best trades. And so, I mean, it's hard. I kind of want to say I don't recommend that, but it worked for me. And so it's a matter too of what fits their personality too. There's no one size fits all trading strategy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just flat out should not trade ever at all. I think that's very true as well, even though, they're going to have some gut wrenching, year and a half, 2 year periods where it's bearish.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that a little bit with this holding versus not holding, I think a lot of, looking back on some of the people that were saying hold this and never move or whatever, and My opinion is if you're just gonna sit and hold Bitcoin, some like you said, Killer, some people are probably best just to buy Bitcoin and then come back in a couple of years and check on it because they're gonna trade it away. It's this gonna go up. I mean, we think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually great you said that because I got my buddy into an altcoin a couple weeks ago, and within a couple days it had gone up a lot, and he was immediately like, "Let's sell it, like let's sell." And I was like, "Nah, like this is the type of thing that like you actually want to hold on to, even if it's not like long term. I was like, you want to hold this like because it just has good potential." And he's like, "But you told me it, like when it goes up like 50, 100%, like get out of it." And I was like, "Yeah, but I was like, this is different." So like, it's really hard because the same advice you give people, you don't take at times.
Yeah,
And like,
totally.
it's so hard because like that's something that like you could be mentally clouded on, but at the same time, like you just have that gut feeling sometimes where like, not that you're like, I don't know, you just know that you're like, let's do this. Like it's got more in it, it's got more in the tank. Like it's not done, and you just have to like suck it up. So for him, like I was teaching him, and then like it got to that where he was like, all right, like let's sell it, like we're done. I was like, nah, dude, like this is just like the beginning of it. So like that, it kind of went against everything I had taught him, and that's where I think like the hold mentality came from. Is it's like, why sell it at a one time or two times, like when you could be doing 20 or 50? And like the thing is, a lot of people aren't experienced enough to know what they're doing to be buying things that are gonna do 15, 20 times. So like a lot of the people that buy them are gonna be all right. Like you look at like people like Shower and Gaines, and that's just that's just off the top of my head. There's plenty of people who are really good at finding altcoins and then flipping them for large multipliers. But you look at them and they spend their time researching the fundamentals, and they also know how to chart on top of what they do. So like if you're looking to find like a niche, like you're looking for that. So you can find people like that who know exactly what they're doing, and they can really find you the coins you want to hold or that you want to be investing your time and money into. And it's about that, but at the same time, like there's nothing wrong with holding Ripple at 40 cents and watching it go up to like $2 and selling it. Because if a lot of people would have done that, there'd be a lot less salty people on Twitter.
Yeah,
Same with
totally.
Verge, same with Tron. I mean, all those coins that people would have just sold when they could, like, it's greed. And I mean, at this point, you can't be greedy because there's no gains to be greedy with. But like that 3 to 6 month period after the bull run, there was just so much greed, and it was like every time then the green came back, and people were like, "All right, I'm not selling until I do 100%, 200%." And it's like, bro, you just went through a bear trend of like 3 months, and like you think like we're just about to go bullish because your coin's back up for a week, and that's where I think a lot of people took a lot of like emotional toll when we had the fake outs and things like that. I think that's where you find the most like upsetting points. Not so much when it's sideways like it is right now. I think right now you have an issue of social construct pretty much on Twitter of like at this point it's alphas, like you said, it's alphas against like betas in the sense that there's people who like are on Twitter to be friends. They're there to make friends. They're there to network and stuff like that. And then you got people who are there to trade and people who are there with their skin in the game. And when you're meshing people like that together, you're gonna get hurt feelings because there's a group of people who don't care what they say. They don't care what they do, and they're usually the louder group. And then you have the other group who's there to be friends with everyone and make sure everyone's feelings are all right. And I think like there's a separation because most of the best traders, it's a cutthroat game. I mean, as much as you want to be friends with people on Twitter, you're trading against them. Whether you want to believe it or not, you are trading against everyone in the world. And it's an individual game, but it's like running. Where like, yeah, you're running like for your own time, you're doing it for yourself. But at the end of the day, like it's great doing it with friends, or it's fun doing it with people. So like it's individualized, but at the same time, it's a group thing. And you have like a herd mentality where people group up and they go into their little subsets, and it's like you just don't mesh. There really is no meshing, and it creates all this bad blood, and it's kind of silly because like there's no reason for it. I mean, a lot of the stuff is just it's nonsense, and I mean it doesn't relate to trading. It doesn't look good on us. It's fun. I mean, it really is because like a lot of the people that are doing like shit talking on Twitter and stuff like that, either they're good at trading or they just have enough money that at this point they don't give a shit. And a lot of the people who are upset are people who have lost money or emotionally invested in trades and things like that. and you can see it. And like when you see that kind of stuff, like it really sucks because you almost want to help people, but at the same time, like some people just won't get out of their own way, and you just have to sit back and be like, all right, like that's it. Like I can only do so much to help you. And like I'm not gonna call anyone out or anything by name, but there's people who have messaged me through DMs and been like, people who are popular and have had really bad drawdowns, and they just didn't want to tell anyone on Twitter. And I was like, why do you care? Like, what do you care? At one point, I lost, I think 27% of my portfolio in the summer on Mex. I got absolutely smoked shorting in July, and I was eating L's on Twitter because I was posting every position, and it was like 6,400 got beat, 6,800 got beat, 7,400 got beat. And then finally at 8,000, I finally caught like the short that actually hit. And everyone's still making fun of me. And I mean, at that point, it was almost like the boy who cried wolf, because it was like, yo, you shorted like 7 times and you finally got it right. But I wasn't going to sit there and I wasn't going to sit there and be like, oh, I'm better than all of you and shit. But I wanted people to know that, like, just because, like, the thing is, I might have missed so many trades in a row there, but that short, on top of some of the other positions I had, not only covered all that I lost, it made me almost another 15% on top of my position. So it was like, yeah, like Twitter's laughing at me and shit like that, but at the same time, like I ended up getting the last laugh out of that. And at the end of the day, it was for myself. Twitter doesn't lose money when I make money. They don't. It's like you're really, at the end of the day, you have only yourself to look in the mirror and answer to. So if you're not trading for yourself, I just think off the bat it's a dumb thing. It's all,
and you're never going to learn too.
Game.
Right.
It's like if you don't take ownership of your losses, you're never going to improve from them, because it's always just going to be, oh, you know, if this person hadn't recommended that, then I would have been doing this, you know, and if I hadn't blah, blah, blah. You can make so many excuses in your head. And like, unless you take ownership, you're not going to improve. You're not going to learn those lessons.
Exactly. And it's like, it is a killer be killed game. I mean, every single day there's someone that's dropping out. There's someone that's quit. There's people that are quitting. There's people that are coming in. And it's about like the flow. And that's the thing, is someone's always going to be coming for your spot. Like you can be number one today, you can be number one tomorrow, but every single day you're going to have to keep fighting to be that number one. And there's people who are going to fight tooth and nail every day to be number one. There's people who are going to be content being top 5, and there's people who are going to consistently stay at the bottom. And the thing is, you find the people that are staying at the bottom usually have the most to say. And when you have that kind of mentality, it's like it creates all the bad blood, because I don't want to get into names, but like when you look at the West and Maine thing, like there's a lot of bad blood between the two of them right now because of calls that were made and things that were said. And in a way, they're both right and they're both wrong. And it just comes down at the end of the day, like if you're trading, you should just be trading for who you are. I mean, it's a reflection of you. So at the end of the day, like if your personality is the way mine is, like you don't give a shit if you win or lose on Twitter. Like at the end of the day, I have to look at my own bank account. I have to look at my own accounts and be like, all right, like how'd I trade today? How'd I do? Like that's my meal ticket. That's my kind of that's my thing. Like if
Twitter,
if just because I have Twitter clout, that doesn't mean shit. That's not going to pay my bills. It's not going to put food on my table.
Exactly. Yep.
So that's what I look at. It's like you can have the utmost Twitter clout and you can be the nicest guy in the world. And you can be the shittiest trader. And like, I don't know what that makes you. I don't know if that is a good thing or something. It's really the person. For me, I'm trying to take over both. But more importantly, the things that put food on my table and that'll pay my bills and give me a future, that's the things that I'm going to be focused on and worried about, more so than what someone on Twitter behind an anonymous profile is saying about me.
You can't head to the Verizon store to pay your cell phone bill with a successful tweet that makes it look like you had a successful trade, unfortunately.
I was going to say, unless you're John McAfee, I don't think any of us would get away with it.
Oh, shit. Well, Flocko, we kind of hit our time limit here. I guess shouldn't say time limit, but kind of running out of things to chat about. So before we wrap up, any loose ends you want to tie up before we call it an episode?
Well, that's all. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. I think people, people get a good perspective from the things that you said. Really dove into some things that maybe we haven't dove into before. One thing I do want to mention is I want to say Shower is surprisingly a really good trader for as much shit as he talks. Him and I have had some conversations, and he shared some things with me, and pretty good at TA and just really a good trader. So I want to give a shout out to him, and then a shout out to Murph. I got a buddy that's listening that Is not really into crypto, but contemplating doing it, and he's on tonight. So shout out to everybody. Thanks everyone for listening. We will just party, I guess, right?
Hoot skis for the boys.
Hoot skis for the boys.
So you can be
Take
drinking
care of
that,
yourselves.
that watered down Busch Light.
Watch it, boy.
Bush ain't bad. Actually, I hadn't had Bush in years. It's not bad.
See?
I don't know. It's not bad. Not
Flocko,
bad.
tell me the last time you had Busch Light.
Busch Light, probably when I was a sophomore in college.
So that's
what, a
exactly
year
when I
ago?
had it. Like same exact year. Yeah.
Probably
violently ill.
2014. Yeah.
Yeah, Flocko. You're funny. Like I told you the other day, you remind me so much of my little brother. It's funny.
All
right, everyone,
That's a
thanks.
good or bad thing, but thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for joining us, Flocko. Appreciate your insight. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Tip your waitress. Hoot skis are for the boys. Peace out. Take care.
Bye.